Hello everyone and welcome to Avantika Designeering Series or ADS as we like to call it. Every week on Wednesday, we feature design and technology leaders who share their professional journey, their thoughts on their domain of work, and designeering where the world of design and engineering meet. Make sure you follow us on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. And with that, let's continue with your show.
In the post-pandemic world, where every service or product is available online, great usability in itself would not be enough to overcome the customer expectations. It is a time when bridging the emotional gap between the industry and the user becomes more crucial. In fact, the ability to form an emotional connection with the customers is one of the key factors to ensure a financial industry success and gain customers' loyalty. But how can designers use empathy to find the intersection between the business goals and the end user needs? In this episode, we interact with Ritesh Rajan, Deputy Vice President Design at Edelweiss Financial Services Limited, to know more about this theme. He has over a decade of user experience, design strategy, research, and project management experience. And that's why, on our journey of discovering designeering, we talked to him about the equity of empathy. Hi, Ritesh. Welcome to Avantika Designeering podcast series. Thank you so much for joining us on our show today.
Hi, Rohit. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure.
Super. So, while we start our conversation with you, Ritesh, my first ice-breaking question with you. Creativity is an essential part of design and innovation that requires an absorbed mind, a relaxed state of focus and attention. The question that I have for you, Ritesh, is what are some of the practices that we can follow to let the creativity loop running even when we are not working?
I do simple things like I take a break or go for a workout. Usually it is running or do something completely other than working on the creative solution that I have to come up with. So honestly, there is no real answer for this. Everybody is tuned differently. Like with experience, I think you find your thing to get back in the loop. So a weird thing that I do is I assign one song to a project and continuously keep listening to it. So I'm listening to one or two songs probably for 3 or 4 weeks and sometimes more. So that's basically my method of getting back in the loop. So I just keep listening to one song again and again. Maybe it won't work for everybody though.
Wow, super. And any favorite song or playlist?
So no, there is no favorite song. So I can tell you that right now I'm listening to Eminence Front by the Who. So it's a 70s British band. It's amazing.
Wow, that sounds exciting. I'll definitely catch up on that music right after our podcast is recorded. So moving on, and with an experience of more than a decade working across various financial institutions and technology company, we would love to hear about your professional journey.
Okay, so Rohit, this is a long story. My journey in design started way before I actually started working. So back in 2000, my dad bought a second-hand PC from his company. So this PC, his company, which they were getting rid of, he thought it would be a good idea to get it for Ritesh so that he can learn Excel and Word. But this PC was from the print department, so it had Corel Draw and Photoshop file, and it had few raw files which the department had worked on. So when I got it, immediately I started exploring the computer. I got these files and I started playing around with them, moving things around. Started designing wallpapers for my brand new second-hand PC, and played a lot of Minesweepers, of course. And I had no idea there is something called as art or design college back in that time. In 2001, when I graduated 10th, my high school, I didn't do well. I had a very average score, so I ended up picking up commerce, and then I did my bachelor's in management studies. Right after management studies, right after BMS, I luckily got placed in Citibank in 2007. And Citibank put me in a team where I was creating reports on PowerPoint presentations for some bankers in US. So my job was to continuously create PowerPoint presentations and company report. So this is where really my journey picked up. I was being recognized for this aesthetically good looking presentations that I'm creating. Multiple times they were specifically asking for me to work on it, and I was part of a big team. A senior of mine noticed this and he told me that I should consider graphic design. And from there, the second job that I took was with Monitor Group, and which was as a designer. So this team already had seasoned designers who went to design schools abroad. That's where I even learned about art and design education, honestly. So within 6 months of working with them, and they started advising me that you have a knack for design, and I should kind of attend a design school. And after some time, within probably 6 months, right after that, I ended up joining Srishti School of Art and Design, and that changed pretty much everything for me, honestly. Like I learned so much about design. Like I learned design is not just aesthetics, like it's a solution. like uh, in fact, aesthetics is the last thing, form follows function. Srishti was a huge impact on me. It made me think for myself. It made me look at a solution in my way. What you design was not about how it looks, it was about the process and what it solves or communicates. And it was an amazing learning experience overall. It was very unlike the high school and the colleges that I've attended before. So it was pretty amazing. Post Srishti, I joined SAP Labs, which was in 2013. This was the time when most companies, were looking at cloud-based solutions, and SAP leading in this enterprise product sector. I got great exposure in how digital was playing an role internally in every organization, and how a cloud-based setup helped for a omni-channel experience, not only for consumers but also for enterprises. So that was, quite an eye-opening learning in terms of digital and technology. From there, I joined Fractal Ink Design Studio. It's actually a very great design studio in Mumbai, and they contracted me to McKinsey and company as a full-time employee. And here I got great exposures in designing products from start to end, and it came with a variety of products from different sectors of industries and multiple streams within an organization. So I am designing products for HR, for sales, for marketing, and for general operations, for different types of sectors such as banking, oil and gas, and automobiles. And it was a great exposure. So I worked with them for 3 years. Felt like I worked for 30 years though. Like it was a very high paced job. It was amazing. And while working with them, right, I was drawn towards working with a product firm. Like I am not a service based firm anymore, or a consulting firm. I wanted to own my own products because I saw people owning their products, and I wish that for myself. When I got the opportunity with Edelweiss, I did not hesitate. Like I joined them immediately. I really liked their personality as an Indian mid-sized firm competing with the giants of Indian banking scene. I like their style and I like their personality a lot. So here I have built my own team. We own and we work on multiple products. Like we have a say in a lot of the things that we do, and it has been really a great experience with Edelweiss. So this has been my experience so far.
Wow, that is quite interesting. I think there's huge amount of variety in terms of
Right.
in terms of the kind of experiences that you've had, and there are multiple questions that I have from what you just mentioned. So talking about, while you mentioned about building a team, every leader is different and every leader has a different experience they have accumulated to date. My question is, what are your unique strategies for managing and leading teams at various levels of the organization?
So as a manager, I'm more of a coach. Like I like to make sure my designers are constantly learning from me, mainly from how I think and how I arrive at a solution. So they pretty much know what I know and especially how I think. So that's good so far. I make sure I see a progressive upskill growth with each of them. Like I don't focus too much on the hard skills because I know with experience they kind of keep growing their hard skills. I focus more on the soft skills and cross-functional understanding. So learning this takes time, like, and one has to go slow with repetitive experience to cement it permanently. So it's a slow process, but it's a very effective process. And I think a learning experience has to be slightly slower in nature so that you see different perspectives. So in my daily stand-ups, I talk about all current and future projects. All my feedback and suggestions are done in front of the whole team because I want them to learn from each other's design. So if I really have to summarize it, like I would say it all boils down to having a great culture and an intentional two-way communication as part of your team design.
Hey, did you know with a 1.2 million strong client base, Edelweiss has a strong network of sub-brokers and has been awarded as Best Broker by Finance Asia Country Awards 2020. Well, that's an interesting advice, and I'm sure all leaders try to identify these unique ways in which they lead teams. So I think that's really interesting. What's exciting is that you're not only focusing on the current challenges at hand, but even talking about the future and where you want to shape your teams to be. So that's pretty exciting. So, Ritesh, my next question, comes from the fact of managing large portfolios of products. I mean, it requires highly flexible ecosystem that caters to the needs of a large group of people. The question that I have is, what is the design philosophy you follow at Edelweiss to provide superior digital product experiences to the customers?
That is a good question. So we had some challenges early on. So what we did was in the initial part, right, in one of our core projects that we did, we got the opportunity to work on a design component sheet. So this was a big project, and we knew that this project was going to very hugely impact the overall platform and all the supporting platforms as well. So we created a very deep uh, uh, design component sheet. This helped us immensely. So what we do now is 70% of our time is spent on UX and talking to the key stakeholders. Like from a delivery point of view, once we cover all the screen flows and the key info architecture of the module, we jump into the UI phase where we are just adapting components from this master sheet. So this immensely helps us, and it helps our tech team, as there are no surprises in any new micro interactions that we are building. So it makes it easier in following the steps for the different value chain in such as product and BA team and the tech team to consume the process, and you kind of designed it easily. So it's very intentionally adopted so that there is no friction in the overall pipeline of any projects.
Interesting. And while we talk about this, in fact, the other interesting point that I wanted to touch upon, Ritesh, was the entire revolutionary shift in the users of the banking industry. In fact, the majority of established banks already have platforms to deliver new services, but the challenge is about implementing customer experience design in banking at large. What I wish to know from you is, how can designers provide more innovative and personalized experience to retain customers across various channels?
Unfortunately, designers doesn't get access to work on the overall service journey. Well, not yet. I'm talking about these conventional retail banks. So it is difficult for them to have a solution which works for the whole of India, mainly because of the different type and income ranges of users. Different states, cities, and villages have multiple processes and regulation complexities. Banks have these dense network distributions among these villages and cities, and the inconsistent method of data collections and recording makes it difficult to design something innovative and really out of the box. And with all the legacy technologies they still work on, it adds to their restraints. So that's why they are constantly playing catch up as compared to these digibanks and neobanks that you see. So these new banks and payment products are basically tech firms. They are not a service firm, right? They are pure a tech play. And we will see many horizontal integration between these conventional retail banks and these neobanks. So this will be an interesting time for the Indian banking industry, and the future is really bright for Indian banks. So there are going to be many changes, and as designers, we will get to design interesting products, more contextually relevant for our country's user type. So I would say our midterm future is definitely bright for designers in the banking space, and it's going to be a fun ride.
Super. In fact, when you talk about it being fun ride and exciting things, one point that I cannot escape is where each one of us talks about let's gamify it. I mean, it has become the new mantra of engaging users with the products, and it has become a popular strategy because it relies on psychology of addiction to engage users to keep coming back to use a product. My question to you is how can we use design thinking to gamify better and hook customers to the product?
So, short answer, by designing better and relevant products. So I'll tell you. So I started hating these words, gamification, chatbots, because people started using these terms to really sell the product or the concept, because there was a trend and people were buying it. So it is similar to the silly trend we saw of the joggers pant. I don't know whether you remember jeans, chinos, cargos. All men's pant had these, joggers format of bottoms, and all brands did it. So then suddenly one day it all stopped, and now you see very few of them. So I would say not all products really need gamification and chatbot. So I'll explain an easy way to understand this. There are two types of products. One is a painkiller, and the other is a vitamin. Google Maps is a painkiller. Like, a user opens the map to know a location of the place. So this is an immediate, just like having a painkiller to instantly kill the pain, right? So you don't really have to exercise too much of gamification to kind of get the user back onto the system here. While products like LinkedIn, Medium are vitamins, it takes time to build your network and following. It takes effort to create content and post them, and hence these products have to come up with smart cues to nudge their users back into the system. So they use likes, comments, subscribers, and different modules to kind of loop you back into the system. Once you identify what type of the product you are designing, it becomes easier to learn what would encourage a user to come back to the product. So designing for a user's success helps building trust, and this gives you basically a better engagement.
Wow, interesting. I definitely agree to the fact that a lot of times these jargons are misused and maybe not aptly fit, in terms of the product or the service deliverable. In fact, while we've been talking about the word experience, we come down to something that you have been doing on a daily basis, which is user experience. And if you talk about user experience designers, they are known as natural empaths. But many designers get caught up in the idea that empathy is merely understanding other person's perspective. I wish to know, what is your definition of empathy? How can designers, in fact, use empathy to find the intersection between the business goals and what your user actually needs?
Yes, to understand person's perspective. That's right. And there is a big aspect of emotions and context involved here. So the emotional and the contextual part helps you understand the degree of what will encourage or discourage your user. Once you learn this, it helps you to pitch effectively, to get the right reaction from the user. So I see your question falling during the user's exploration phase, when he is looking for a particular product or service. So the UX is more from the storytelling, copywriting, and visual communication of the service or the product. So understanding the degree of what will encourage or discourage the user will help you design the right experience for anybody who lands on your product.
Absolutely. In fact, Ritesh, I think that's a pretty interesting point where we talk about the intersection of the business goal, the design goal, and all of it coming together and talking about the new possibilities that we create for customers out there. In fact, my next question on user experience is where Steve Krung, in his book "Don't Make Me Think," has talked about what users think in the flash of a second. It will decide whether they stay or leave on the from the website. Human perception varies, especially in the way we observe different visual information. The question is, what are some of the ways, Ritesh, through which designers can make it easier for users to find the opportunities for action that they need to have a better user experience?
There is no right answer for this. In fact, the right solution comes with many trial and errors and constantly reiterating the product on the fly with users. Uh, uh, if you remember, Google Maps, Facebook, even Zomato and Swiggy are good example of this. Like you would have noticed, there was a time for Facebook when they constantly changed their design. I think it was around from 2007 to 2011, and till they found that sweet spot, and then they suddenly stopped and focused on various content types. So recently they refreshed their UI and their visual design, but the larger navigation model and the UX still remains the same. So constant iterations with the user helps you design the right product. And this is an ongoing process. The trend keeps changing, interactions with devices keeps changing. So these constant variables makes the UX grow and fun for us designers.
Hey, did you know? Trusted by customers and recognized by their peers, Edelweiss has been acknowledged and awarded the Finnovative Award 2020 in the segment of Top 25 Financial Innovations of India. Interesting. And I'm sure that as the entire concept of user experience is evolving day by day as the technologies get it sophisticated, I'm sure that there are going to be new possibilities and exciting things for all of us to look into the future.
That's the fun part of our industry, I would say.
Absolutely, Ritesh. In fact, Ritesh, while talking about experiences and the long-term objectives, my next question comes from there, that long-term relationships with subscribers are the new business objectives that make experiences rather than products the new focus of development efforts. Traditional methods like user research, competitive analysis are insufficient to actually meet the new demand of these subscription based economies. I wish to know your views on how can organizations gain long term customer loyalty.
So what I have learned recently is there can't be just a product or service firm. So a product firm will have services and a service firm will have products. Firms want to have a bigger share in your life. Like, so creating and growing their portfolio of offerings helps them be part of the user's life in the long term. So these ancillary products and services are designed to keep you in a way dependent with their services and brands. So you would see that, like, I mean, Apple have started subscriptions, while Google, being a digital product services, which making digital apps and search engines, they are making phones and notebooks, etc., and so on.
Interesting. I think loyalty is something that most of the organizations keep struggling with in terms of ensuring that how do we hook on our customers to keep coming back to us again and again. And I think design and user experience plays a very important role in today's time out there. And there are so many case studies and so many examples out there for us to take inspiration.
So allow me to add to this. Uh, uh, so uh, Now you would see that there are multiple competitions, in each sectors. Like, I mean, it's the competition is extremely fierce. So it becomes, if I am, let's say, recognized in some areas, it kind of makes competitive sense for me to kind of go into an associated segment and kind of have more of the time from my audience. So that's what essentially the product and all the service firms are doing right now.
Interesting. That's an interesting point of view. In fact, while talking about all of this, one of the areas, Ritesh, that I don't think uh, any one of us can overlook is the entire aspect of technology. Today, we see a lot of design tools and processes use artificial intelligence and machine learning. They act as game changers that can augment or replace several steps of the design process itself. The question that I have for you is, what are the other ways we can use AI and ML to create user centered design?
Okay, so what AI and ML can do is give you insights on your A/B testing, give you insights using the collected data, and possibly predict trends. So there could be some products which mash up your photos and videos using AI or ML. iOS already does that. But there are, these are set templates which is designed to recognize and create albums. It is not going to replace a video photographer's job. However, I can't see how AI and ML could practice user centered design. I could be wrong. So the main factor in USD is user, which is a human. And we know humans are rational, irrational, logical, and illogical, and with variety of human emotions. And machines are just logical and super intelligent. But could they be creative? Could they be emotional? I don't think so yet. So we will see these AI tools which will facilitate a designers with the work that he does, but I don't see anything more than that for now.
Interesting. Definitely agree. I'm sure that, like we mentioned, a few minutes ago, that the entire world of user experience design itself is evolving. I'm sure that technology is getting sophisticated day by day, but it is meant to assist the users rather than completely replace the human aspect of it. And that's beautifully put. I mean, it's more of a complementing tool rather than supplementing tool.
Exactly. Thank you.
Great. Ritesh, automation, artificial intelligence, and other technology can drive significant benefits for design and businesses. But we also often ignore the dark side. For example, a powerful algorithm used in social media have moms suddenly questioning whether to vaccinate their children or not, the displacement of frontline service workers, and so many more examples of such kind of situations. The question that I have is, how can we use humanity to build an ethical, automated future while the entire world of AI and ML is also evolving?
Right, that is really sad, honestly. Like, so this happens only with a certain type of digital sector, I would say, which is social media or search engines, and its monetization format and the lack of regulations makes it easier to exploit that system. So, if we forget social media for a minute, you will see great benefits of digital in your life, and how greatly it is embedded in you. So from the inception of the human existence, only in the last 50 years we have seen digital and technology so heavily embedded in our life, and yet we know there are going to be a magnitude of changes with better regulations, which will help us grow better with technology.
Interesting. And while we are at it, this brings us to my last question for you, Ritesh. At Avantika University, we've coined the term designeering, which is the blended approach of design and engineering. Do you see this actually as future of designing, where both these worlds of technology and design come together, they blend together, and there's going to be a lot of new exciting things happening around this theme?
Yeah, I think the future is in this trifecta of design, engineering, and entrepreneurship. I would love to see designers starting new services of product. Like, I mean, so, the best companies are the design centric firms, the famous ones like Nike, Apple, Disney, Airbnb, to name a few. Uh, I think students of Avantika University should focus on creating their own products and services, which was, that's basically the future of Indian economy, and I would say the world economy itself.
Super. Thank you so much, Ritesh, for joining us on our podcast show. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Likewise. Thank you, Rohit.
Hey there, we hope you enjoyed our show. Do write to us on ads@avantika.edu.in. We look forward to your opinions, feedbacks, and suggestions of speakers you would like us to host on this show. Do tune in our channel next week on Wednesday for a new story on Hubhopper or wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.